What could possibly go wrong in Tenerife? It would seem that life on the island is as beautiful as paradise. When Tomas Hio kidnapped his little daughters from their mother, she was desperate, but still believed that the biological father wouldn't hurt little Anna and Olivia. She endured 44 days of desperate hope. 44 days later, 6-year-old Olivia's body was found at the bottom of the ocean. The entire island froze in horror. Queen Letizia of Spain expressed her condolences to the poor mother and said, "I don't think there is anyone this morning who is not trying to put themselves in the shoes of the people who loved these murdered girls." This story began when 15-year-old Beatriz Zimmermann and Tomas Hio started hanging out in a mutual group of friends. The young people continuously spent time together, enjoying leisure activities such as playing golf, tennis, sailing, and visiting cafes and clubs. Their luxurious life seemed cloudless. When Beatrice turned 18, their friendly relationship smoothly transitioned into romantic feelings. The couple in love looked perfect, young, beautiful, and happy. Parents from both sides fully supported their romance, so the wedding was not long in coming. A lavish ceremony, arranged at the expense of their parents, marked the beginning of a new stage in the life of the newlyweds, who lived in a huge villa, gifted by their relatives. In 2015, their first daughter, Olivia, was born, seemingly adding even more happiness to the family. However, not everything was as cloudless as it appeared from the outside. Tomas turned out to be a real egoist and narcissist, thinking only about himself and money. Tomas's father, also named Tomas Hio, was a wealthy businessman, owner of a golf club and numerous plantations on the island. He was a fan of fast cars and had been a rally driver in the past. Tomas's mother was the winner of several beauty contests. For the first years of their marriage, young Tomas worked nowhere, living off his wealthy father. Eventually, he began working in his father's company, but his aggressive and irascible temper led to frequent arrests for fights and traffic violations. Each time, he was released without significant consequences. His wife and daughter were of little interest to Tomas, as he spent all his free time with friends and other women in nightclubs and at social events. Cars, boating, jet skiing, tennis, and other sports were his usual pastimes. In the small circle of wealthy residents of Santa Cruz de Tenerife, everyone knew about his lifestyle, which was full of parties and alcohol. The malleable Beatrice tolerated her husband's behavior for years, for the sake of keeping the family together, hoping he would improve. On August 12, 2018, the family welcomed a second child, a boy who, unfortunately, died a few hours after birth. This tragedy broke the parents, especially Tomas, who was eagerly awaiting a son. The relationship in the family rapidly deteriorated. In the summer of 2020, while pregnant for the third time, Beatrice, who was tired of her husband's constant infidelities, decided to divorce. She moved to her parents' home with her eldest daughter, Olivia, and later gave birth to Anna. The support of her relatives and Olivia's love for her little sister touched Beatrice to the depths of her soul. Tomas could not come to terms with the breakup and constantly harassed and quarreled with his ex-wife. Soon, thanks to working at a real estate agency, Beatrice met Belgian businessman Eric. Joint trips in search of a house and lunches brought them closer, and soon they began dating. Eric turned out to be a reliable, decent man who sincerely loved Beatrice and her children. It seemed that happiness had finally returned to the woman. But upon learning about this, Tomas went mad with rage. He could not believe that Beatrice had traded him, a young, handsome man, for a 60-year-old Belgian who was much older than her. Tomas was afraid that Beatrice might take the children to live in Belgium, and he would never see them again. Thoughts of how Eric, an older man, would take care of his daughters drove him crazy. Friends considered it mere jealousy, not even suspecting what Tomas was capable of. He began stalking his former family, hiring a private detective to track their every move. On August 30th, 2020, Beatriz was dining with her daughters and Eric at a restaurant. Tomas, who routinely followed them, decided to act. Waiting for them to come out, he attacked Eric with a bat right in the parking lot, brutally beating him. Then he grabbed Beatriz by the hair, dragging her on the ground. Only the intervention of restaurant patrons, who called the police, stopped this madness. However, Tomas fled before the police arrived. A frightened Beatriz decided not to file a complaint, hoping it would not enrage him even more. But Tomas did not stop, continuing his surveillance and plotting revenge. In December of the same year, a new clash occurred in a parking lot near a store. Despite the insults, Tomas did not cause physical harm, so Beatriz again refused to file a complaint, fearing the situation would worsen if he were arrested. The police kept Tomas under surveillance, and for a while, everything was calm. 35-year-old Beatriz married Eric and moved in with him. 6-year-old Olivia attended tennis lessons in kindergarten, while little Anna was only a 1-year-old. Tomas communicated with the children, and it seemed he had finally calmed down. But in reality, he had not forgotten the offense and was filled with determination to take revenge. On April 27, 2021, Tomas, as agreed, picked up little Anna from Eric and Beatriz's house. Then, he drove after Olivia, as agreed with Beatriz. Tomas had to bring his daughters back home by 9 p.m. They went to an educational center in El Rosario called Dilla, where Olivia took classes on Tuesdays and Thursdays. The director of the center was in a relationship with Tomas at the time, and he gave her a pencil case wrapped in duct tape, telling her not to open it until 11 p.m. and to call him at that time. He then left with his daughters. However, the woman ignored his instructions and opened the case at about 5:20 p.m. She found 6,200 euros in cash and a farewell letter inside. The woman thought it was Tomas's way of breaking up their relationship. Tomas then drove to his parents' house, leaving Anna in their care while Olivia took a tennis class. During that time, he went to the marina to check that his boat, named Escalon, was working correctly. Tomas and his daughters arrived at his residence at 7:47 in the evening. 3 minutes later, Olivia sent a voice message to Beatriz to relay a message from her father. He wanted her to stop by his place at 9 p.m. to pick up some paintings. However, upon arriving at the appointed time, Beatriz found no one at home. Calling Tomas, she heard that they had gone out to eat and would be a little late until 10 p.m. Beatriz didn't know that Tomas had actually left the country estate in his Audi just a few minutes ago. He drove toward Santa Cruz de Tenerife, but stopped at his parents' house, where he left his dog Otto, 2 credit cards with PIN numbers, and 2 sets of keys to another Alfa Romeo car. He diligently said goodbye to his parents, which seemed a bit odd. Beatriz waited for the children, but by 10 p.m., her ex-husband still hadn't shown up. His phone did not answer. She managed to have a brief conversation with Tomas at 10:40 p.m., but that conversation brought no relief. Tomas was angry and threatened not to return the children. The connection with him was cut off again. The frightened woman went to the police, convinced that her ex-husband had kidnapped the children to take them abroad. But police did not consider it an abduction, as Tomas was the biological father and had the right to see his daughters. At that time, there was no evidence that he posed a danger to them. Beatriz began searching for the children on her own, contacting Tomas's parents and friends. No one knew about his plans or whereabouts. Everyone only said that he had said goodbye to them, which only reinforced Beatriz's suspicion that he was fleeing abroad. Numerous calls to Tomas yielded no results. His phone was switched off. At 1:30 a.m., they managed to talk, but the 20-minute conversation was filled with arguments and threats. They discussed their relationship, and Tomas stated that Beatriz would never see her daughters again. He had made sure of that. All attempts to persuade him to return the girls were futile. Beatriz drove around the city all night looking for the children. At 8 o'clock in the morning, she went to the police again, reporting that Tomas and the daughters had not returned. The woman told them about her suspicions regarding his farewells to loved ones. This time, the complaint was accepted, and an official search for the missing persons began. Investigators suggested that the father could have taken Anna and Olivia to South America or Africa. A check at the airport showed that they were not registered for any flight. Tomas's boat was also found to be missing. A major search operation was launched. The Air and Maritime Services of the Civil Guard, as well as the Maritime Rescue Force, and the 112 service helicopter of the government of the Canary Islands participated in the search. At about 6 o'clock in the evening, exactly 24 hours after Tomas had taken the children from Beatriz's house, the boat was found. It was drifting empty near the town of Guimar, a mile off the coast. A child's car seat was also found drifting in the water. On April 29th, the first search was made of the house and farm where Tomas lived, and where Anna and Olivia had spent the day with him. Footage from the marina's video cameras and witness statements were also analyzed. It became clear what Tomas was really doing on April 27 at 9:05 in the evening. Heo left the house in his Audi with large sports bags in the trunk at 9:13 p.m. He stopped at his parents' house, where he left his dog, Otto. Then he headed to the marina, where he loaded the bags into the boat and headed out to sea. The security guard saw Heo. The children were not with him. At 10:40, he spoke to Beatriz while he was still at sea. Then his cell phone ran out of battery and he decided to return to the port. At 11:15, a civil guard patrol boat intercepted him and told him to go home, stating that he would be fined for violating the local curfew, then in effect for the coronavirus. Heo told them he would sleep on his boat. When they left, he asked the security guard at the marina to lend him a cell phone charger because his was incompatible with the phone. Heo went to a gas station where he bought a new charger, a pack of cigarettes, and a bottle of water. He returned to the marina at midnight, spent 15 minutes charging the phone in the guard's room, then returned to the boat and sailed away at 12:27 a.m. Never to be seen again. Early on Friday morning, April 30th, it was announced that the seat which had been found floating in the sea belonged to Anna. Also, on that Friday, it was revealed that investigators had found traces of blood in the boat. On May 1st, Tomas Heo, as well as Anna and Olivia Zimmermann, were put on the International Missing Persons list. It became known that the blood found in the boat belonged to Tomas Heo. Tomas's house was revisited, and the boat was examined again, but nothing new was learned. The hope of finding out what happened to Olivia, Anna, and their father melted away with each passing day. A fateful decision was made to use the unique research ship, the Angeles Alvarino, from the Spanish Oceanographic Institute. The Angeles Alvarino is equipped with a sonar system and a remotely operated underwater robot that can detect almost any object underwater at a depth of up to 6,500 feet. The ship has a low speed, under 13 knots. Therefore, despite the decision to use the Angeles Alvarino being made on May 7th, the transition from the port of Vigo to Tenerife took many days, and the ship entered the port on May 29th. The next day, the Angeles Alvarino began its long and painstaking work. Residents of Tenerife did not yet know that they would see the ship on the horizon for many days in a row, waiting for news. On June 7th, the Angeles Alvarino crew found an oxygen tank and a duvet cover at sea. Both items belonged to Tomas Heo. On the 10th of May, an anchor and an object near it were found on the ocean bottom at a depth of 3,200 feet. The object turned out to be a large bag. The finds were taken up to the Angeles Alvarino. The oceanographers are used to the rigors of their work. Yet, in this case, they were hoping to find a clue to Anna and Olivia's disappearance, holding out hope they could be found alive. No one was prepared to see little Olivia's body inside the bag. The men were broken and crying. Soon, a second bag was also found, similarly tied to another anchor. The zipper of the bag was broken, and the bag itself was empty. It could be assumed that little Anna's body had previously rested there. The shocking news quickly traveled around the island, and then all of Spain. Beatriz received a tremendous outpouring of condolences. The Queen of Spain, the Prime Minister, and many other public figures expressed their sympathy, but this could hardly alleviate the grief of a mother. The autopsy showed that there was no water in Olivia's lungs. The girl had been strangled. No foreign substances were found in her blood. The time of death was April 27th, around 8 p.m. The Angeles Alvarino carefully scanned the bottom in the area where the bags were found. 2 more oxygen tanks were discovered, presumably used by Tomas. After killing his daughters, he likely decided to commit suicide. He might have needed oxygen and a heavy diving belt to dive to depths from which it would be impossible to surface. However, the diving belt was never found, nor were Anna's body or Tomas's. The ship ended its search on June 16th and departed for the port of Vigo. The police are convinced that Anna was treated the same way as Olivia and that Tomas committed suicide. Their bodies are likely buried somewhere in the depths of the Atlantic Ocean. Tomas's psychologist noted narcissistic, Machiavellian, and psychopathic traits that may have driven him to kidnap and murder his own children. However, the goal was not simply murder. Tomas's objective was to get revenge on Beatriz for their broken relationship and her desire to build a new life without him. He chose the cruelest way, ensuring she would suffer a lifetime of not knowing what had happened to her daughters. Surprisingly, the Angeles Alvarino was able to disrupt a plan that Tomas believed was perfect. When Beatriz was asked to present an award to the ship's crew, she gladly accepted. She sincerely thanked the crew for their work. Heaven was merciful to Beatriz and gave her real joy. Exactly 1 year after the tragic events, Beatriz and Eric had a daughter, Elsa. Another beautiful event occurred in October 2022. A monument to the little sisters, Anna and Olivia, was placed in Santa Cruz Square. Now, they are forever 1 year and 6 years old. Rest in peace, little angels. I just wanted to say a big thank you to everyone who watched this video all the way through. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this case in the comments. And please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I'd also like to send a special thank you to everyone who has donated to support my channel. Your support means the world to me and gives me the motivation to keep making new and interesting investigations for you, my wonderful viewers. Thank you all so much.